Hi, my name is Wilton Arellano, and I'll be talking about my summer co-op experience with Hycrete Inc. First of all, I think it's important to talk about the product that Hycrete manufactures and how it fits into the concrete industry and its market. I'll be talking about concrete and water ingress, concrete degradation, waterproofing methods, Hycrete integral waterproofing and their technology, and more specifically my own internship experience, the type of work that I did, and the takeaways that I had from that summer. So concrete, a common metaphor for concrete is that it's a hard sponge. Basically, it's not solid. It has a porous matrix of voids that allow water and other chemicals to come in even after it's hardened. So these are two pictures of capillary pores and voids and even microcracking. This is a macro crack. Any concrete contractor will be familiar with this. Frustrates them to no end. There's different repair methodologies for repairing such cracks. This is a diagram which I actually assisted in designing during my internship and they use for their current marketing material. What it diagrams is two different ways that water can ingress into the concrete matrix. One is under hydraulic pressure and one without hydraulic pressure, which is through capillary action. The outside surface of the diagram is depicting a hydraulic head, which is causing the water to ingress to a certain point until it reaches equilibrium. And at one point, the hydraulic head has no more influence as to how much water ingresses and capillary action takes over. What that is, basically, is cohesion forces within the water molecules interacting with adhesion forces along the surface, causing the water to move on its own without any influence from pressure. And that way, moisture makes it all the way through into the concrete and it reaches the reinforcement. Now we've got to figure out, why is that bad? Why is it bad for water to reach the reinforcement inside concrete? So this is basically the results of that water ingress. When water ingresses all the way into the reinforcement bars, the metal bars that help concrete in tension, it causes the bars to rust and to expand. And when the reinforcement expands, it causes cracking, it causes spalling, buildup of luminous corrosion products, and that's never good for a concrete structure. Once cracking begins, the structural integrity and surface life and structural performance of that concrete structure is compromised. This is one of the more extreme examples of concrete spalling. You'll probably find this probably one of the first results if you Google concrete degradation. Some methods of stopping this water ingress are using supplementary cementitious materials within your mix, such as slag, fly ash, and silica fume. These finer types of cementitious materials fill in those capillary voids or create a more dense mix so that the capillary matrix is there's a less porous matrix. There's also the membrane method, which is just an applied surface membrane with different types of materials like bitumen and such, and also a crystalline integral waterproofer. An example on the bottom right over here is, on the left of that is an empty capillary void, and on the right of that is crystal growth from the integral waterproofing agent. And different chemical processes cause that crystal growth. Now, specifically what the Hycrete product is also a chemical admixture, an integral waterproofer. This is an oversimplified version of the Hycrete product system. You have the admixture, you have the concrete mix, the batch, which is, it'll most likely be dosed into the truck, and when you combine those two together, what results is a waterproof concrete structure, and that is signified by the bead of water that's not seeping into the concrete surface to the right. Now, what is the value proposition of the Hycrete product? Over a membrane, which is requires tedious installation and multiple trades, and also difficulty in repair, the integral waterproofing of the Hycrete product embeds the chemical and the waterproofing technology into the concrete matrix itself. That way, leaks and repairs are easy to find. When membranes leak, you don't know where the leak comes from, and that's easier to understand in section. But also, the membrane is already inside, is already inside the concrete, and so you'd have to do a lot of extensive repair. This is another diagram describing the Hycrete technology. The cracks, those aren't really cracks, those indicate the porous matrix, and the yellow is the chemical reaction that happens within the concrete when the Hycrete chemical interacts with different metallic ions. It causes a pore blocking molecule to appear within the pores, therefore blocking water. It also ionizes the rebar, creating a passivating layer, which this is extra protection. So this not only acts as a waterproofing chemical, but also acts as a corrosion inhibition chemical as well. So there's a dual performance within the Hycrete product. Now, specifically, my own experience within Hycrete Inc. I like to talk about this within 3 different categories: the desk, the lab, and the field. And I've been able to have extensive experiences in all 3 categories. The desk. The desk regarded market research, market analysis. The Hycrete product as a chemical, even though it's used for concrete waterproofing, was originally manufactured for corrosion inhibition in engines. So I had to do some more research as far as market potential and entry into markets as a sebacic acid replacement. So I had to figure out who the major players were in there, how much it would have cost us to enter the market, whether it was feasible at this point, at this stage in the company. One of my first projects was doing a comparative study of BASF products. What kind of waterproofing capabilities did their product line have? I had a lot of chances to interact with state DOTs. Another major project that I had was getting the Hycrete product onto approved qualified product list, QPLs, in different states. And I had about 5 different states, and it gave me a chance to interact with different Department of Transportation and figure out the whole process. Even though it was very bureaucratic, very slow, I think it was an important thing to learn. And I had more market research with Saint-Gobain, seeing how our products can supplement some of their product line, and Green Roof Pavers, whether they're in need of a integral waterproofing product and how we could enter that market as well. So it's not just the technical aspect. I had a lot of research and figure out how can we make more money on the current product line and current services that we offer, and how can we expand the potential of the technology within the market. More in the desk is marketing literature. My official title as an intern was Marketing and Business Development Intern, and a big part of that was editing the current marketing material that they had. On the slide are different examples of some of the marketing brochures and some of the technical documents that we had. I had to make sure the messaging was accurate, it was clear, it was concise, and it portrayed the proper amount of information without being too wordy, but also conveyed the performance of our product and the market value it has over other products as well. So it had to be technically accurate. We had to make sure the message of sustainability and that we are a green product. A strong branding of the Hycrete technology is cradle to cradle, and I also had to do a project on how to position and strategize that branding in order to utilize it better instead of just sticking it on one of our product as a product add-on. And again, just showing the diagram again because that's something I assisted in designing that they now use within their marketing literature. And that's just some of the things that you do under the marketing flag. So that was the desk. That was my in-office experience in business operations. And I also had a chance to do some lab work, competitive testing. So we were doing a comparative study between our product and another product for a upcoming spec, which was worth over $1 million, I believe, if I remember correctly. I specifically was in charge of set time testing, developing the lab sheets and tracking the data. It was a 23-hour trial, 14 different batches, 2 mixes for each batch. 2 types of mixes for each batch. And I just had to track all that, track all the set time of every batch, of every mix, and make sure all the data was accurate and there. I compiled the lab report to present to the Vice President of Research and Development, and this lab report would also be distributed out to the national sales team, so I had to make sure the lab report was accurate. It communicated all the conditions of the test and all the things that we were testing. And here's a list of some of the things that we tested. Slump, air content, strength, set time, ASTM absorption, British absorption, shrinkage, chloride ion penetration, and chloride migration coefficient. And once again, this was in order to figure out if we had a marketable advantage against our competitor product, and that we could bring when the time came for the project to choose a spec for a waterproofing chemical. So that was the lab. This is the field. I got a chance to shadow some of their Hycrete technicians in managing pours, looking at the installation of the dosing system at the batch plants, figuring out how to dose it into the trucks, managing batch plant tickets, making sure the trucks got to the right place, they were getting the right amount of chemical. We went to the sites when they poured the concrete as well to make sure the water stops were installed properly beforehand, to make sure that the drawings in which Hycrete was present within the concrete and Hycrete wasn't needed, make sure that was accurate and lined out, and that it was being poured in the correct place. So basically making sure that everything was consistent with how we planned it over in the office, and that everything in the lab was also consistent. I mean in the field. And more in the field, the day that we poured one of the bigger slabs, the outdoor slabs, it was I think 103 degrees outside, and so there's a lot of cracking. Hycrete has a leak-free guarantee, warranty with its products, so we had to do a lot of crack repair, epoxy, Sikaflex, and that's just some of the air testing out there. There's actually a big problem which we had to troubleshoot. We weren't getting the type of airs that we wanted, and so we had to communicate that to the batch plant, and there's this huge squabble. And so we weren't sure, no one was sure who to blame. There's fingers being pointed back and forth because bad airs in a mix is not a good thing. And so we went back, tested our mix. It ended up that the numbers were weird on their side, but this is a big client, Baker, and so we wanted to keep a good rapport. I learned very well how to keep a cool head, not in myself, but from the Hycrete technicians. They were able to keep open the channels of communication, keep calm, make sure the talks were fact-driven. We showed them our lab numbers, and we found out later on that they changed the mix without telling us, and so we had to arrange all that. But also making sure client relationships are good. So I learned a lot in what I described, a lot about not just the technical aspects and the business operations, but how to communicate to different clients, to different parts of the company, and what you need to say, and specifically what's listed here, the time, detail, and dedication needed for technical lab procedures. That was a big part. Client-centered and innovation-motivated marketing, and that came when I had to edit the marketing materials and help design different diagrams in order to get the message of the product across to the customer. Literature evaluation and editing, like I described. Research methods and report writing. I think this was big because you got to figure out not just a good product, but how to make money, and also how to expand your market, and how to research how to enter different markets and where to get that kind of information. And I think that was very key, and it will help me along in my career. And interaction with a range of clients. This was a huge thing, able to see how you talk to different types of clients, how you talk to different people on the field, and like I said before, troubleshooting the whole air content problem, being able to keep cool heads, and communication is definitely paramount, and making sure that channels of communication are always open. Yeah, that's my experience with Hycrete Inc.